This is the Cameron Journal Podcast. It's a place where we talk about important things. It's a place where we bring a little slice of the news to you. It's a place where we do important things, have important conversations. It's also things that I like to talk about. My name is Cameron Cowan, and this is the Cameron Journal Podcast. Today on the Cameron Journal Podcast, we are joined by Paxton Quigley, who is the author of Armed and Female 2, Never an Easy Target. This woman has been everywhere and has been a scion of this for a while. Her previous work has been read and evaluated by everybody. She's been on 60 Minutes and NBC Nightly News and all this type of thing. She's been everywhere. So this is a good get for us. That she's very kind to slum it down here with us in podcasting world. And so we're going to talk about female self-defense and guns and what it all means and how women can use these tools to defend themselves. And as you know, everybody has women in their lives and self-defense is important. So we're going to dive into this. So welcome, Paxton, to the Cameron Journal Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to our conversation about women and guns.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about Armed and Female 2 and what it's about and what your goal with the project was?
Okay, well, let me first tell you that I used to be anti-gun. And something happened, and I'd like to tell the story because it shows what happens. This went back about, I'd say about 15 years ago. I was just having a good time in LA, and all of a sudden I get a call from my friend saying, come over, something horrible has happened. And I said, well, what happened? She said, well, come over. And this is what happened. She was sound asleep at about 2 a.m. in the morning in a very nice neighborhood in Los Angeles. Her bedroom was on the second floor. She had her window open, and of course she never thought that anyone would come in through her window. And that's what happened. A guy came into her window. He had a gun. He attacked her, raped her, and ran out. And she was just like, lost in space, so to speak. It happened so quickly that she didn't really understand what was happening, but she was terribly bruised and confused and crying. I came over to the house, and I got to tell you, she was a mess. And I took her to a nearby hospital where she was taken care of. And I got to tell you, when I saw the damage done to her, not just physical, but also mental, I said to myself, this is never going to happen to me. And believe it or not, 3 weeks later, I got the courage to go to a gun place, a gun range, and actually learn how to shoot. Now, I got to tell you, I was scared out of my mind with the gun. It was a .38 special. They tried me on a .357 Magnum, but that got to be too.
That's way too much kick. Continue.
Yeah. Now I know. Now I can handle the kick, but then I couldn't handle it. And then I went to the store and picked out a .38 special revolver. It wasn't a snub nose. It had a 3-inch barrel. And I said to myself, I'm never going to have this happen to me again. And out of the clear blue sky, I decided maybe there are other women like me out there that have had the same experience. It didn't, directly happen to me, but I saw the damage. And lo and behold, I decided that I wanted to learn more about shooting a gun. I took all of these fabulous courses out there that are available to people all around the United States. And I got a good teaching when it came to owning a gun. And I decided that I wanted to teach women how to shoot. And for the next number of years, I taught more than 7,000 women throughout the United States, as well as abroad, how to shoot a handgun for self-defense. And after that, I decided to write a book about being armed and female and what it was all about, owning a gun, choosing a gun. And then 30 years later, which is now, I decided to go ahead and buy and write a new gun, and not a new gun, a new book called Armed and Female, Never an Easy Target. And it is available on Amazon. And that began a whole new, start with me to talk about women and guns. And I don't think that every woman should own a gun, but I think that if you perhaps live alone, you work the night shift, you are taking care of your children, and you're really the sole, shall we say, protector of children, you might want to have a gun for protection for your family. But that also means that you've got to have a place to store that gun, and it has to be in a place where you can get to it right away. And at some time, you have to explain to your children why you have a gun, and even show them the gun, but to explain to them that it's not for them. And you could even, if they're at a certain age, perhaps even take them to arrange and teach them the mechanics of a gun, not necessarily to actually shoot a gun. So this is what I've been doing. I feel it's really important these days with so much happening out there. And surprisingly enough, it's mostly been white women who have purchased guns. And there are figures out there that say that 35 million women own guns for self-defense. And also they say the stats out there that there are 350 million guns in the United States. So we certainly are a gun culture in the United States. And getting back to women, learning how to shoot a gun, it's not an easy thing to do, and it's got to be taken seriously. Just to go out and buy a gun, a lot of women do that, or they have their husbands or their boyfriends or fathers teach them how to shoot. They should definitely go to an NRA instructor course and really know all of the proper things that need to be done when you shoot a gun and when you own a gun.
It's really important that you say that, because I was nervous about having you on because it's obviously no secret. We have gun culture is obviously very popular in this country. I grew up in the South. I grew up with a 22 by the door. Everybody did. That was normal in the world I grew up in. But it's obviously that, we have a bit of a gun issue in this country with our propensity for mass shootings and inner city crime and all this type of thing. And so but I also believe in self-defense. That's, I think, a vital part of the conversation. And so it was with a little bit of trepidation, because you have kind of these two extreme camps where it's like all guns all the time and no guns never, with not a lot of room in between. How have you handled America's fraught gun debate over the years? You've been doing this for a long time. How have you handled that? What have people said to you? What have you said back to them? How's that worked?
Well, I can tell you in the beginning, there were a lot of people that were shocked by what I was doing. They didn't like it. I lost some friends because of that. But it's interesting enough that, 20 years later, things have changed in the United States. And I said, in more ways than one, women taking care of children, et cetera, that I think now there's more of an openness about having a gun at home. I think there are people who have a gun at home and really don't like to have a gun at home, but I think that they're realizing that we do have more and more crime in the United States, unfortunately, and unfortunately, we have a slew of people out there, mostly men, who have psychological problems and are walking down the street. I mean, just in New York yesterday, there was someone who was shot, a man, an older man walking down the street, and someone came along and shot him. Fortunately, he wasn't killed. He wasn't really badly wounded, but that's how things have become, for example, in New York City. So I'm not saying that everybody is now walking down the street in New York City carrying a gun, but people are becoming more aware of where they go, how late they are at night. Are they walking alone? Where are they walking alone? Should you be walking with another person? Is it best to be walking with a man? There's so many now people thinking differently about their lives and the lives of their children and the rest of their family.
No, certainly. And I think the pandemic has really shifted a lot of that in terms of how society has changed. I was joking during the pandemic. I said, the pandemic is so bad and the presidency of Donald Trump is so traumatic, even liberals are buying guns. Because there was a big uptick over the last couple of years of people buying guns. And so it's but it seems like every time we have a run at gun control in this country, it never gets off the ground, and anything that does get passed is so impossibly watered down so as to be useless. When it comes to gun control, like, what is your perspective on that? Because obviously that affects how easy it is for people to get guns or not.
Well, it's a conundrum for me because on one level, I'd like all guns taken away, but then there's a whole other big level of there's a certain amount of shall we say, crime going out
Mhm.
that is scaring people, and they do want to protect themselves. Now, my book also deals with learning how to protect yourself by taking a lot of these different courses where you learn how to fight off someone who's out there and is trying to hurt you. One of the best groups is called Model Mugging, that's been around for years and years. And the woman, or they have even classes for men where they fight off a man who's dressed from head to toe in a big helmet and is padded, and you learn various ways of kicking somebody, yelling at people and all that. So that, I've done those courses, and it certainly has made me feel stronger. And a lot of times when I'm walking down the street, I kind of rehearse it in my mind, believe it or not, and say, well, if someone attacked me, what would I do first? Because I look around and see where I am. Will I be able to yell? Or what do I do? And one of the most important things for people to realize, and women especially, that it's best to drop to the ground if you can, because usually a man is bigger, and you want to bring it down to the same level so that you can kick. Use your elbows, use your hands, your nails, and of course, yell and keep yelling, no, 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 because you want to keep yourself going so that you can keep fighting. And I have spoken to a number of women who have been able to stop their attacker, and the guy literally running away because they had this knowledge of how to protect themselves. And of course, then there's the other way. There's pepper spray out there. I talk about other non-lethal weapons that are available. If you don't want to learn how to shoot a gun, there's also another way. The gun is the best in one way, and in other ways it could be a bad situation for you. If you're not really prepared and know what to do, the guy could run at you and take the gun away from you. There's always that possibility. And so in Armed and Female, #2, Never an Easy Target, I kind of go over all of these different things that are happening, including traveling. There are a lot of women now who are traveling alone, and they have to take precautions. If they're going into a country where they really don't know what's going on, or in another city, they have to have certain knowledge before traveling. And that's why I thought it was really important to have that chapter, that even if you didn't want to have a gun with you, at least read the chapter. And it's a long one on taking care of yourself when you're traveling.
No, one of the dangers of travel, even domestically in the US, are quite a thing. I spent most of 2020 traveling, actually. And I had, friends, particularly guy friends, that are kind of like, you travel and like you aren't armed, like that makes no sense whatsoever. I'm like, well, I go to certain places, I do certain things, I don't do certain things. It's fine. Also, I am 6 foot and a big brown dude. People tend to avoid me anyway, so I don't have to worry that much. But especially traveling internationally, there's all sorts of ways you can be taken advantage of, or mugged, robbed, left for dead, all this type of thing. The more knowledge you have, the more tools you have at your disposal to try to counteract all of those threats. And sometimes you don't even need to go that far. Sometimes you can be got, because you're in the Walmart parking lot too late at night. So I think when I was looking over your book, one of the things I thought was really cool was your message was very empowering. Even in the title, Never Be an Easy Target, it was about, giving women tools and things to make sure that they can, at least put up a defense, at minimum, make him work for it. At maximum, save yourself and your children and get out alive. So I thought that was really good. A different take on it.
Well, I guess it's come from experience and, of course, listening to so many stories, because when I had the people in my classes, I would always, one of the first questions is I'd go around the room and ask, why are you here? What are you looking for? What's happened to you that you are here in my class? And my classes usually were between, let's say, 15 and 30 people, depending. And I preferred 15 to 30, made it much harder on the line, obviously, because I would do outdoors and need a lot of assistance there to manage it. And so it was interesting to hear the different stories. And some of them, it wasn't their own story, but the story of a friend of theirs, and said, this isn't going to happen to me. So I got to tell you, I was pretty surprised at how many women over the years have been victims of assault. It's quite large, and in many cases, of course, you never hear about it. But and it doesn't. It can be, a strong-looking woman even. Doesn't have to be because you look weak or you're an older woman or a grandmother or anything like that. And of course, then the other situation is children. There are courses now for children to learn how to protect themselves, not to use a handgun, obviously, but children to take courses in self-defense. And I think that's a really, really important. And I suggest to all of your listeners out there that if they have children, they should definitely invest the time in looking for a class for their child or children. Makes a difference, makes them smarter.
Yes. Well, I think the other aspect of this that I think is rather sort of interesting is, and I've said this for a while, because unlike a lot of people, I'm not anti-gun, but what I am against his gun ignorance. And I love the education piece of what you're talking about. Because I'm kind of like, if you're going to own a gun, please learn how to shoot it, how it works, how to clean it, the whole kit. Because a lot of times, women just, get a gun from, father, husband, brother, boyfriend, all this type of thing, and never actually really learn how to use the thing. I use my mother as an example. She's gone to the range, but dad does half the work. Mom can't clean her own gun. So, I think having that knowledge of the full kit all the way through is really huge. So I like that education piece you've got. That's really important, I think.
Well, thank you. And I think by having stories out there, I have a lot of true stories out there of women who have come out, alive or not hurt. Because I think that people then have a better feeling that, yes, you might be assaulted, but if you know what you're doing and have learned, you'll be able to protect yourself. And I think that I think there are more and more women that are realizing it, because there are more and more women purchasing guns. And for me, the interesting thing is the fact that most in the past it used to be Caucasian women, but now there's a real uptake of Black women and Asian women who are learning how to shoot a handgun. So you're getting a whole different group of people coming into the area of protection that we didn't have years ago. So I think that it's important, and I keep stressing it. Take some kind of self-defense course. If you decide, no, I don't want a gun, at least take a self-defense course so you know how to defend yourself. That's so important. It's not only verbal self-defense that you need to know, but physical self-defense. You need to know to say to some guy, get out of here, or I could use some more bigger profanity, so to speak, but I don't know if they're allowed on the radio, so I won't say them. But be strong. That's part of half the battle, because even when you're walking down the street and you're looking at your cell phone, and to me, that's one of the biggest problems that people are having now. They're so attached to their cell phones that they're walking down the street looking at them and even texting back or whatever they're doing. And they're such easy targets. It'd be so easy to take a woman's purse away from them because they're looking at their cell phones. If you're gonna look at your cell phone, use your cell phone, sit somewhere, go somewhere where there's some, safety, rather than walking down the street looking at that little instrument. It's like
no, the lack of situational awareness is frustrating. I even find it in myself sometimes. But 3 years of living in downtown Seattle has really broken me of a lot of those habits, because it's a dynamic and moving environment down here. You don't know what's going to happen next. And then when I was walking late one night a couple months ago, and I was I was with this gal and she was not paying attention. There was a whole string of homeless dudes, drug addicts, which is normal for my block. That's not out of the ordinary. But I wanted them to see me first and not her. And she was walking on my left side. So I'm kind of like, you're going to cross over to my other shoulder. And I'm going to act really intimidating so that these guys stay over there by themselves. She didn't see them. She had no clue what was going on. All I do is look down the road and see points of danger and issues. She was not paying attention. And so, that situational awareness is very important, because if you can see a problem coming, you can avoid it, or you can at least be very more prepared for it.
Correct.
Because the element of surprise is half the advantage. If you can undo the surprise part, you have a much better chance of defending yourself, which can be nonviolent. It can be it can be non-lethal, or it will give you enough time to make sure your gun is at the ready. So situational awareness is a good thing.
I've never heard situational awareness. I'll have to put that in my next book. I like
Yeah,
how
it's a
that.
military term. Yeah, it's a military term.
Well, it's I haven't been in the military, so I can't tell you. But
Me neither. I've learned it by osmosis from, I'm surrounded by vets. I've learned all this stuff osmosis from them. Like they've taught me a lot about stuff. So
New York, and I'm not around people who have all that information or ability to tell me all that information. And a lot of what I've learned is reading other books prior to my book and realizing that there were a lot of, shall we say, loopholes that were needed for women to understand more about self-defense than what is given out there. And so I'm really proud of it. I'm also so happy that there were women who came forward to tell me their stories, so that the book is filled with stories from women of all walks of life. Some with children, some not with children, some Black women, some Asian women, so that if an Asian woman said, I don't know if Asian women should have this, by reading this book, they will see that every woman needs to have knowledge of self-protection. And if they want to go the next step, buy a gun, it's a big step. And I don't say every woman should own a gun, not at all. I think it's a very personal decision and should not be done quickly, so that you really can feel good about yourself in terms of what you are doing to protect yourself and your family.
no, that's very good. That's very good. And so, like you said, in increasing importance. So I understand you wrote the first one a long time ago, and you've written the follow-up now. Um, what what got you motivated to do a follow-up?
Well, I started seeing all the statistics,
Mm,
and I said, there's so much more happening now, and there's so many more guns available. And I think people are more aware of what's going on out there. So that I said, it's time for me to write another book. And it took me 7 months to write it.
that's
And
impressive.
I like this book so much better because it has lots of pictures. And I notice when people pick up a book, and in my book, they always look and see what pictures are in there. And I've got pictures of the various guns, and talk about each one. And I'll just give you a little one here. Smith and Wesson M&P Bodyguard 38 Pros. Durable, built to last, easy to clean inside and out, good for concealed carry, accurate from 25 to 30 yards. Cons, some users found it difficult to load. Grips are very small. Cylinder difficult to pull out at times. And then I say this is a small, reliable, and accurate revolver, an excellent choice for the price, approximately $440. And so that becomes kind of interesting for people to know how much a gun will cost them. The opposite, Ruger LCR 54, 56, 9mm. It approximately costs $829. Not too many women that can afford that. So I've tried to really, it's almost, I want to say, an encyclopedia, because I don't think, perhaps I have missed a couple of points, I don't know, but I tried my hardest to get as much information in, so that once a woman reads this book, she will know more or less what she wants to do and what she should do. And by the way, this book, Armed and Female, Roman numeral 2, it can be purchased online at Amazon.com. It's available, and it's an easy read, and it's got everything in it. I look through it now after finishing it, and I said, "Wow, I put in a lot of information." Here's Brad. And I quote various people. Here's something from Brad Pitt, the movie star. I put in a quote: "America's a country founded on guns. It is our DNA. It's very strange, but I feel better having a gun. I really do. I don't feel safe. I don't feel the house is completely safe if I don't have one hidden somewhere." That's my thinking, right or wrong. So here's former President Ronald Reagan. "With the right to bear arms comes a great responsibility to use caution and common sense on handgun purchases." Here's the founder of Chicks with Triggers, and she says, "Most men want women to have revolvers so damn bad, but we are completely capable of having semi-automatic guns, big ones at that. I helped over 1,500 women pick out guns, and only around 10% of them have actually gotten a revolver." So,
yeah.
You bad guys, be careful who you attack, because you never know who's there. They might look pretty and sweet, and they might know how to fight, and they just might have a pistol in their purse.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for coming on the Cameron Journal podcast. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And thank all your listeners. And I hope they'll get Armed and Female numeral 2. It is available on Amazon.com. Thank you so much.
That's all for this episode of the Cameron Journal podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Visit us online at CameronJournal.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I love to talk to my followers and listeners, so please feel free to get us on social media at Cameron Cowan on Twitter, and we'll see you next time on the Cameron Journal podcast.